предстоит знакомый, потому что он тут живет. Родился здесь. Папа здесь. Наверное, дедушка. Который раньше жил в Польше, а раньше жил. Потом остался этому сыночку. 70-летнему. Там нормально камера. На съемке, да, можно просто сюда заходить. О, дай прикрою.
Давай, прикрой. И закрой этот свет, чтобы не было...
Свет, да? Вот этот вот. Нормально?
Да.
Это тоже закрыть его?
Да.
Все. Тут закрою, чтобы шум. Вот. Уже понимал, стиснул. Ну тут прикрою. Если шел, вот вода была. Попить водички, на всякий случай, если... Я хотел посмотреть. Вот.
Morning.
Good morning, folks.
Good morning.
Ms. Greenberger, I can't see you. Is that fixable?
I just turned the camera on, Your Honor. Sorry.
Oh, there we go. All right. First of all, before I go on the record, sir, I want to make sure I've been saying your name correctly. What is your first name and what is your last name?
Tess is my last name, Vladimir is my public first name, and then Vova is what my family calls me.
Gotcha. So Vladimir Tess is
Yes, correct.
sufficient for our purpose. Okay. All right. We'll go on the record. Good morning. This is Tess versus Greenberger, index number 1563 of 2020. Present is Mr. Tess, representing himself. Present is Karen Greenberger, counsel to her family member, Eric Greenberger. Because Mr. Tess is unrepresented, we do have a court reporter present, who indicated he was having some technical problems. So let me just confirm, are you getting this from us?
Yes, I am.
Okay. All right. We've had a couple of conferences. Parties have exchanged some information. They copied me on the photographs. Mr. Tess has filed a couple of motions related to discovery, seeking to compel production of certain things. In particular, if I understand, Mr. Tess, your most recent motion, your concern that Ms. Greenberger may be withholding documentation that she might later use to support her alleged counterclaims. Is that right?
That's exactly right.
Okay. And Ms. Greenberger has said, I think, that she turned over whatever she has. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct, Your Honor.
So essentially, Um, what I would say is I wouldn't expect to see anything new show up at trial. Everyone's had an opportunity to produce what they want to produce, and there shouldn't be any surprises.
Okay.
Now, that said, in other words, Mr. Tess, your remedy is essentially if something isn't produced by a certain time, the other side loses the opportunity to produce it later.
Okay.
And to be clear, we're early. I'm not necessarily granting that relief today. You know, I'll let everyone have one last look at their stuff and see if there's something else they want to produce. We're still early, but that's the remedy. And Mr. Tess, I should say that maybe we won't have any more problems in this case, but the easiest way to approach something like that is to write a letter to me with a copy to Ms. Greenberger and ask to have a conference to discuss it, because I can usually resolve it without you having to pony up $45 to file a motion.
Okay.
So just for your own financial well-being, we can usually resolve discovery disputes that way. So, look, I looked at all the photos. With respect to the, I'll call it alleged debris on the plaintiff's property that the defendant submitted photos of, the plaintiff submitted photos to seem to suggest that most of it has been cleaned up in the interim, that the photos are, in his view, out of date. Is that essentially your position, Mr. Tess?
Yes.
Okay. And as to the logs and sort of wooded debris, I think both sides have submitted photographs that sort of show that there's a pile of woodland debris adjacent to the plaintiff's property but on the defendant's property. There appears to be essentially a concrete structure or partial structure right around that part of the property. Is that right, Mr. Tess?
Yes.
What is that?
It's where we store our supplies of all kinds for private use.
Just give me an example. What kind of supplies?
There's a dryer that we don't use, for example. You know, stuff like that.
Okay. And it looks like that structure is, I don't want to say perpendicular, but the structure itself, the short end of it, runs right up to the defendant's property line, right?
No, it doesn't.
It looks very close. In fact, it even looks like it crosses the property line.
What page are you looking at, or?
So I'm looking at your filing
Okay.
on page 18.
Okay, just a
It's the
moment.
one where you drew attention to the different conditions of the grass, that it's mowed on one side and not on the other.
Okay, just a moment. I'm gonna open it in just a moment.
Okay, thank you.
You mentioned what page?
18 of 21. So your filing dated March 25th.
18. I don't see the structure here at all. What structure are you talking about?
The concrete.
Oh, yeah, that yeah. So that was there before. I think the land was split up. It's not. I guess it's ours, but it's been there before because I'm assuming the property was larger back then. There used to be horses in the area.
Right.
So that's
the property line, right? Part of it's on your property, part of it's on the Greenberger property.
right. But
That's correct, Your Honor. I actually have a copy of a survey.
Okay.
That-
yeah, but we
So
don't.
It's actually the remains of a barn foundation that once stood there.
Right. So you're both in agreement. It used to be a larger property. There used to be some sort of barn thing there, and whoever drew the line dividing your properties went right through the side of this old barn thing.
I can, just to clarify, Your Honor, I
Yep.
can actually personally attest that it was a much larger piece of property in its entirety before it was divided by,
Okay.
ended up selling it. There were horses all over that property, so I could personally tell you that, and apple trees.
Got it. So and what Mr. Tess indicated was, as a rough guide to the property line, I could see where he's mowed up to the edge and where at the time of the photos, the Greenberger side isn't mowed, so the grass is longer. Is that right? That's approximately where everyone thinks the property line is?
Yes.
Okay. And so the Greenbergers placed these tree stumps in what amounts to their side of the old barn foundation.
Yes.
Okay. Ms. Greenberger, you made a settlement proposal that wasn't accepted, right?
That's correct, Your Honor.
Can you summarize for me what it was you proposed?
Yes. I proposed that the Greenberger would move the tree stumps, as we had previously discussed 2 conferences ago, to the opposite side.
Hold on.
You cut out after you said, yes, I proposed that, and then I lost what you said.
Oh, okay, sorry. It was 2 conferences ago that would remove the tree stumps.
Ma'am, either you're turning your head away from the mic or you're moving papers and it's cutting out the words that you're saying. It happens to be happening on the same word that I keep missing.
Okay, I'll try and stay still, I'm sorry.
Thank you.
No problem. I had after 2 conferences ago, we had proposed at 2 conferences ago that Mr. Greenberger would move the tree stumps to the opposite side of his property. And in my settlement proposal, I proposed that Mr. Test would also rectify his piles of what we had agreed upon called debris. I also wanted some assurance on both parties' part this would not happen again. So we would not again end up in this situation.
Okay.
I'd like to make a correction.
Hold on one second, Mr. Tess, I'll give you a chance to respond, but it looks to me, Ms. Greenberger, as though from the photos Mr. Tess submitted that the debris that you were concerned about has been tidied up.
It does appear that way, Your Honor.
Okay. Which isn't to say that it couldn't immediately reappear, but which is the second part of your proposal, but it does seem to be addressed. So, Mr. Tess, tell me what your concern was with that proposal, because in some sense, your neighbors already got the benefit of it because you cleaned up your property, but they haven't cleaned up theirs yet, apparently because you said you didn't want to agree to this. So tell me more about your position at this point.
Well, my concern is that the whole concept that Ms. Greenberg proposed about, the 20 feet surveillance area, where in 2 years Mr. Greenberger can come over and tell me, oh, there's this here, you have to remove it. And as you can see in the evidence, there is no trash there as a correction. We didn't agree that there's trash on my property. I don't see that way, and I'm sure you see it the same way. There's no need for that. All that needs to be done is remove the trash on the Greenberger side. And I've been nothing but honorable.
Okay. I guess on the... Seems like you guys should just plant some trees right along this boundary. Hedge or something. So, Mr. Tess, if Mr. Greenberger removes those trunks, the wooded remains there, as far as you're concerned, you don't need a lawsuit anymore, right?
Yes.
Okay. And Ms. Greenberger, are you reasonably satisfied from the photos that you see that the Test property is now much more cleaned up than it was at the time you took the photos?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. So, look, I like planning for the future as much as everybody. Um, but I understand Mr. Tess's hesitance, particularly if he does use that particular barn foundation to store tools in. That's clearly within the 20 feet that are being contemplated. In fact, 20 feet probably goes pretty close to that sort of culvert that's along the, near where Mr. Tess has arranged some barbecue equipment. I think this is a rare case where you may actually be less likely to fight again if you don't try and plan for the future than if you do.
It's just, my client's concerned that if you look at the prior photographs, it's all well and good.
It's a mess.
That Mr. Tess cleaned up, and, certainly, but there's a severe distinction between tree stumps and piles of, if you look at, for instance, page 19 of the, there's a substantial difference. You can look around the area that property is in fact, across the street, looking out from the front windows of Mr. Tess's property, there are trees from fallen trees in the area. It's a very bucolic area.
I got you.
The tree stumps, in fact, are of a big storm that took place in September of 2019.
So
this is, by contrast, this is an accumulation of.
I hear you, but it's dumped right on the property line, and it's not, a branch. It's a large quantity of debris that's going to rot. That is, I think we'd all agree, being rural folk, definitely it will, as Mr. Tess says, invite animals, invite snakes, invite, it can still be a problem despite being natural. My own personal aesthetic, I agree. I'd rather look at tree stumps than a bunch of iron bed frames and rusting tools and cages and things like that. But if Mr. Tess has removed them, I have to tell you, it would be hard for me to fashion injunctive relief in the future that wouldn't be subject to just as much likelihood of dispute. So, I guess what I'm saying is, if you remove the tree stumps, it sounds like the case could be moot.
I mean, that's what the whole case is about.
Right. Well, no, and they made the case about the mess on your property, but it appears that you cleaned that up.
Quite some time
They
ago.
might very well have had some valid claims there. And look, as to both property owners, you're living in rural Sullivan County, and sometimes messes accrue on properties. Like, you need equipment, you got stuff. I get it. A jury might well not care, or a jury might think it was horrible and ugly. I guess what I'm saying is, Ms. Greenberger, I totally understand why you asked for a plan for the future, but for purposes of settling this case, I wouldn't stand on that. So I would suggest that you move the tree stump, since you're offering to do it anyway, and we come back after that's done and hopefully just put the case to bed. And, we'll see at that point. If Mr. Tess is able to go another month without littering the property, then chances are he can keep that going, okay? But you don't want to be in a fight over what should or shouldn't be allowed in the future. it's really hard to crystallize that kind of a legal dispute. So, and Mr. Tess, you know, you're at the same risk, right? I mean, she's offering you a 20-foot buffer between the properties, and if you don't agree to it, then you're not getting it from them either.
Right, but let's say another pile appears, you're here for us, right?
Well, you got to file a lawsuit again once we dispute this, once we dismiss this. But yes,
Right.
and if another pile of metal junk appears, I'm here for them too. Okay, but if we're not going to agree to how to conduct it in the future, the simplest thing is to say, all right, Mr. Tess cleaned up, Mr. Greenberg is going to clean up. Let's just be done with this. Okay. Ms. Greenberg, how much time do you think? It's your brother, right?
Yes, it is.
Okay. And Mr. Tess, again, just to be clear, because I don't want to impose a cost on Mr. Greenberger without knowing what he's getting for it. If we come back here in a month and that stuff's gone, you're prepared to agree to dismiss your lawsuit?
Yes.
Okay.
I
I'm
would
sorry,
like,
Mr.
I would
Greenberg.
like, I would like to see if Ms. Gringelberg can compensate for the lawsuit.
I don't think that's likely to happen, sir. You guys are just going to have to walk away from it.
Okay. Yeah, that's fine.
Ms. Greenberg, you answered my question, but I didn't process it. How much time?
Your Honor, I would ask for at least 30 days.
Tell you what, we'll come back in early June, but I think you should try and get it done by Memorial Day.
I will definitely make the request, and I appreciate you just.
Okay. So let's say that we're going to have another conversation like this, same fashion. How about, can you do first thing in the morning, like 9, actually 9:30 would be fine on Wednesday, June 9th?
If we could do 10 p.m., Your Honor, I have a conflict.
How about 9 then?
Unfortunately, I can't do earlier.
Okay. So I've got a conference at 10 and I'm supposed to be on trial. So what I could do is give you, I could do it like at lunchtime, like at 12. Would
That
work
works.
for you?
That's perfect for me. Thank you.
Mr. Tess, how is that for you? 12 o'clock on June 9th.
12 o'clock in the afternoon, June of 9th is good.
Okay. And by that point, hopefully the tree limbs are gone and we can all say that we're moving on and done. Okay?
Sounds good.
All right.
All right,
Nice to
thanks,
see you
Your Honor.
both. Okay.
Likewise.
Good luck out there. Happy spring. Be safe.
You too. Okay, be well. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Eric.
Все.
Вас
Все, мы договорились.
О чем?
Они снимают
До 9 числа они мусор уберут. Все.
до 9
Больше ничего.
июня. 9 июня, да. А почему
Она,
деньги не
она
возвращают?
согласилась? Она согласилась?
А, не знаю что. Да.
Она
Ну да.
сидела вот так. На место не находила себе.
Она была в расстройстве, да. Потому что она думала, что он сейчас скажет, что это то, это тот сарай, тут не то, месс, слышишь, месс. Ну, мы только переехали, тут такое дело, месс. Бросали
Да.
куда попало, мы бежали с этого.
Да.
Пошел я флаг поставлю, ребята.
Давай.
Слышишь, Виталь, Вова?
Пришло.
Слышь, Вова, за деньги я не переживаю, Но мне кажется, что она такая рада была, что деньги не верну. Нет, не вернем.
Мы могу сказать, что да, идем на трайл, все. Но это с этого не стоит. Мы хотели мусор убрать, они не собирать.
Да. У нас есть.
Ну, он видит, что ты справедливо поступил. Да?
Да?
Ну, конечно.
И судья сразу решение принял. Все.
Да, судья справедливо
Ну,
решил.
он решение не сделал. Он сделал рекомендацию ей.
Ага.
А она, как натренированный, понимаешь, офицер, она говорит только то, что судья ему скажет.
Да,
Ей. Понимаешь? Так
да,
получается.
да.
Нормально, все хорошо. Денег нет, но зато...
Я такая, знаешь, я уже, когда услышала, что она сказала, я
Это
уже так
победа.
раз, я уже так палец поставила. Ты видел, я не знаю.
А я все время дулей держал ей, когда она говорила.
Ну, давайте печай все и, короче.
Ой, сыночек.
Все, мы сделали. Мы сделали. Долго, но мы сделали. Все остальное будет так же самое, только быстрее.
Потому что будет нотариусом.
Да. Да.
Вам придется убирать свой гарбич. А теперь еще, подожди, еще не все. Папа сказал, что когда пройдет время, они вроде уберут, и там гарбич останется. Тот же мест, который они нам показывали на фотографиях. Так мы фотографируем и представили.
Да.
Ну, к сожалению, уже осталось чисто как это было.
Бежи и звони своим, блядь, хлюпикам, чтобы
Но
было.
Нюпики ж там.
А?
Нюпики у нее. Где там они, не знаю. Они ж вместе с ней.
Да.
Они там были.
Ага, ты понял?
Нет, но машина уехала ровно за 3 часа до начала этого.